Hey, it's Travelgigolo and we are back in the Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park. Getting to the Kgalagadi is a long drive from almost anywhere. It's about 250 kilometers from Upington, which is the nearest significant town, and about an 800 kilometer drive from Johannesburg or from Cape Town. Its sheer isolation from most of the bustling areas of the country is probably, for me, one of the greatest attractions of the Kgalagadi Park. Besides driving, you can fly into Upington. That will save you quite a long drive, and then you've got to rent a car perhaps and drive the remaining 250 kilometers to the Kgalagadi Park. We're here in the middle of the summer and the gates open at 05:30 a.m. in the morning and then close at 7:30 p.m. This changes quite significantly over the year, so in the winter time the gates open at 7 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. Because you're probably driving quite a significant distance to get to the park, this is important information because you've got to kind of factor that into your planning to make sure that you get to the gate in time. Also note that once you leave Upington, your opportunities to get fuel are quite few and far between, and in fact the nearest place that you can easily get fuel is Ascam, which is about 75 kilometers from the Kgalagadi. So you've got about a almost 200 kilometer drive from Upington until you can get fuel again. So why the Kgalagadi? Why drive all this way to this remote Transfrontier Park? The wildlife viewing here is difficult to beat. Because of the vegetation and the type of landscape that you have here, you have these vast open areas with relatively low shrubbery, and where there are trees, they're not very dense, so you get some really great wildlife viewing. Not only do you get clear views, but because it's a very arid region, you almost never have inclement weather. So this is one of those places where even over a short period of time, you're pretty much guaranteed to have some great sightings. If you want to see big cats, then the Kgalagadi is the place to go. And if you're looking for the big cats, the lions in particular, then look for the big herds of herbivores. You will generally find the lions relatively close by to those big herds if you keep a sharp lookout. This is not a big fight park. There are no elephants or rhinos or buffalo here. But there's no shortage of lions. You are very likely to see lions if you come into the Kgalagadi Park, and there are also a good number of leopards as well. The lions are reportedly on average some of the biggest lions that you will find in sub-Saharan Africa. Besides the lions, predator sightings are generally really good. So leopard and cheetah and hyenas and some of the smaller predators like blackback jackals, Cape fox. There is quite a variety of predators, and you will see a lot of them as you go through the park, particularly if you spend a bit of time. Although there are no elephant and rhino or buffalo, there is a plethora of herbivores here. The beautiful oryx, or gemsbok as they're more commonly locally known, are one of my favorite things to see. In the summer, temperatures in the daytime can exceed 40 degrees Celsius. That's about 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And so water and shade are prized resources. You will almost without doubt get some of your best wildlife sightings at the watering holes. It pays to be patient at the watering holes. If you can find a nice shady spot to stop and enjoy the view, and just take a couple of hours to sit there and let the animals come through to you. Of course, driving around is quite fruitful too. And one of the things that I really like is that you will very seldom find a significant crowd of vehicles at a big sighting. And this is primarily because of the remoteness of the park. It's almost never crowded. Something that I highly recommend is that you go and see the hides, especially at night. If you're camping or if you're staying in the park in a chalet or whatever the case is, then you will have access to those hides throughout the night. A lot of the predators are more active at nighttime, they're more nocturnal, and so you will see quite a bit of action quite often at those hides if you're a little bit patient and you're able to sit there or prepared to sit there for a bit in the nighttime. If you're into birding, then this is a great place to come, particularly for raptors. I think if you're also a beginner in terms of birding, then this is also a really good place to come, because there aren't many places that you can go where you can get such close-up, clear view of many species of birds and raptors in particular. The aridity of the Kgalagadi lends itself well to raptor spotting, so you'll often find the big raptors like tawny eagles and battalios hanging around at the watering holes. Goshawks and falcons and many other species of birds are abundant, and you will often get a really clear view of them because of the type of vegetation and the sort of open landscapes that are here. There are various accommodation options at the Kgalagadi. You can stay at a set of chalets if you don't enjoy camping. We prefer camping, so we have camped at Matamata, Tweereferin and Northsop, and those are the 3 campsites in the South African side. If you prefer the wilderness permanent tented sites, then we stayed at Kgalagadi, which was excellent, and I'll post an episode of that as well. All the roads in the Kgalagadi are unpaved roads. You don't necessarily require a 4-wheel drive or a vehicle with high clearance, but you should be prepared to be driving over fairly significant stretches of corrugated unpaved roads. That being said though, these unpaved roads are pretty well taken care of, and we have often seen a set of graders running up and down and smoothing out those corrugations. If you have the right tires, of course, you can drop your pressure and that will make your ride quite a bit more comfortable. If you have a city type sedan, then you may find some of the going pretty slow over those corrugated sections. But like I said, you can use almost any vehicle to come here. You don't need a specifically high clearance or 4-wheel drive or SUV vehicle to traverse through the park. Note though that there are some roads that are strictly 4x4. Those are generally not part of the main routes through the park. So there are some routes that you must have a 4-wheel drive to go over, and a lot of that is because of the relatively deep sandy sections on those roads. Some of the major routes are a bit sandy, but it's not the type of sand that is so significant that you need a 4-wheel drive to get through it. We don't normally go on game drives, but we thought we would do a game drive this time just to have a change from our usual approach. So one of the really cool things about a game drive is that you will have a really knowledgeable guide that can show you stuff and teach you, so you will learn quite a lot on these game drives. And of course, because the guides know the park and they know the routes and they're up and down them relatively often, then they also know where to find stuff. They know where the dens are and where you will find animals nesting or birds nesting and that sort of thing. So it's really nice to go with them because you're almost guaranteed to see cool stuff. And of course, the guides have well-trained eyes. So a lot of the time, someone like myself without that well-trained eye that's seeing this all the time will miss some significant sightings in the camouflage. I think as well for me, one of the nice things here was that not having to drive means that you can spend all your time looking around and just taking in the scenes and enjoying the various sightings. And this, for example, was the first time that we've seen Cape Fox, and we had driven this stretch of road a couple of times, so we'd actually driven past this Cape Fox den a couple of times and we just hadn't seen it. Whereas with the game drive, we had someone there that pointed it out to us and suddenly it was really obvious, and we got a really cool sighting of this den of Cape Foxes, or this family of Cape Foxes. So that was a really nice event. First day in the Kgalagadi, and we noticed driving there that the primary battery on the car is charging, but the second battery was not recharging. Having had issues with the secondary battery for a while now and meaning to replace it, we thought, okay, let's just go and replace it now and see if that fixes the problem, which it did not. And unfortunately, because we were rushing to get to the Kgalagadi gate before it closed, and we were doing this in Uppington, we pretty much had to leave and hope that we could sort the problem out ourselves by tracing the wiring and trying to find a fault. And then we got some really great help from the guys at the Kgalagadi, namely a gentleman by the name of Kutsia, who gave us some pointers on the electrics and just checked out the engine generally, or the electrics generally, and found a blown fuse, special kind of fuse. So anyway, we went back to Uppington, which is about a 250-kilometer drive, which is quite a significant drive to fix a relatively simple problem. As it turns out, when we get to Uppington and we speak to the auto electrician, there was a blown fuse, but the secondary battery was not charging because of a loose connection. 250 kilometers back to the Kgalagadi because of a loose connection that took all of a couple of minutes to sort out. But nevertheless, it wasn't an obvious one, and I wouldn't have found it on my own. But that's probably because I'm not an expert. And so in this case here, it definitely paid to get an expert to do the job. And it all worked out very well. But I think this is an important, couple of important points here. The first is that distances in the Northern Cape are significant. So getting from the Kgalagadi to Uppington is 250 kilometers. And driving back from Uppington to the Kgalagadi is 250 kilometers. That's a 500 kilometer drive if you have any problem of significance. So take note of that and just bear that in mind. The second thing, and I think this is something which is really astounding, and it always catches me by surprise, pleasantly by surprise. All these small towns that we're going to, we find people that are so helpful, you know, extremely helpful. And in this case here, we basically went to the auto electrician, a gentleman by the name of Chris, and he was very helpful, man, and in a few minutes he had solved the problem. And not only that, but you know, we weren't charged for the labor of fixing the problem. You know, just the cost of the fuse and a couple of extra fuses to keep us in good stead. So, you know, it's amazing. We always have these experiences. I think it always does catch me by surprise when we go to these small towns and you've got a problem where you need to solve something, and people are so helpful and so friendly. And the same thing happened here, and it's a really pleasant experience, and kind of reinforces that holiday feeling, good vibes, and just something that love for traveling and seeing these people and these places in South Africa. And it's fantastic, and the rest of Southern Africa as well that we've traveled in. Thanks to everyone who assisted. Thanks to Kutsia at the Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park, Transfor. Thanks to Chris in Upington as well. Yeah, you know, and thanks to the guys that helped jumpstart our car when the battery was completely dead within the Kgalagadi Park as well. Those are a couple of tourists like ourselves, so thanks to them as well. It's been a very trying experience, very stressful, but some really cool things have happened along the way. Being so remote, the Kgalagadi is more suited to sleeping over in the park than it is to day visiting. However, there are some accommodation places quite close to the entrance to the park, so there are day visitors that come in, and I suppose you could drive from the surrounding towns or from Upington, although it's quite a significant distance to come in for a day visit. There are various picnic sites in the park that are suitable for day visitors, and of course for people that are staying in the park and driving around through the park, especially if you want to spend your whole day driving through the park and you don't necessarily go back to your chalet or your campsite. Then it's nice to come to some of these picnic sites, and you'll find there basic ablutions as well as a nice braai spot and a place that you can chill and set up your food and just get through your lunch or a nice meal and enjoy your time outside. Take note though that the picnic sites inside the park are unfenced, so you do have to take sensible precautions when you're there. It's highly unlikely that you'll have a significant interaction with any of the animals or dangerous animals while you're in these picnic sites, but they are unfenced, and these places are accessible to all the animals in the park, which of course includes large predators like lions and hyenas and so on. I really like the picnic sites, and I think that the Kgalagadi Park has done a really good job of them. We really love the Kgalagadi, and I'm glad that we got the chance to come here and experience it. I think for myself, some of the things that I really like about this park is firstly that it's really open, and so you can get some really good wildlife sightings, some really clear sightings, especially of the large predators, which often in some of the other parks that have more dense vegetation, you don't get as good a sighting as you do here. The birding's also really good, and raptor sightings in particular are brilliant. We found the area north of Norsup to be especially fruitful for raptor sighting. The hides are really nice, especially for nighttime viewing. And I think for me, one of the biggest attractions as well is that this park is so remote, and so it's never crowded. You never get the feeling of being surrounded by a lot of other people or tourists that are here to see the animals. You get this feeling of kind of having a lot of space open to yourself, and you're never having to fight for position for a really good sighting of a set of lions or whatever the case might be. So from that point of view, I really like it. I love being here, and the fact that it's remote and there aren't a lot of people that are coming here. The fact that it's arid is also pretty cool too. You know, this means that you generally have clear days and clear skies, so it's very seldom that you have weather that's not suitable for wildlife viewing. Of course, this means that you need to come prepared for that dry heat and to stay hydrated. We really love the Kgalagadi, and I'm glad that we got the chance to come here and experience it. The border posts are small and not crowded. It's fairly quick to get through them. Note that the Tweerifering Gate is where the South African border officials are, so you've got to do all your border crossing related stuff on the South African side when you come into Tweereferum. If you haven't been to the Kgalagadi, I definitely recommend that you do. It's well worth the long drive. And if you've been there before, then I definitely recommend that you go there again. So I hope you found this episode informative. If you did, hit the like button. Also leave a couple of comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and check out my other episodes on the campsites of the Kgalagadi. So I've got a couple of reviews of those, and those are really informative too. So until the next episode, go everywhere, see everything, have a great time.